Welcome to this explainer. If you're a focused learner trying to cut through all the noise and really grasp how massive technological shifts are impacting, well, pretty much every corner of our world, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're unpacking a massive paradigm shift. We're talking about the adoption of structured artificial intelligence frameworks. But here's the twist. We aren't just looking at this from a high-level corporate angle. We're going to explore how these rigorous, data-driven frameworks are being used in macro business settings, specifically top-tier banking, and then how that exact same logic is desperately needed in the microenvironment of our own homes. It's a truly fascinating connection, and seeing how it all structurally ties together is going to completely change how you look at the tech in your living room. Okay, let's dive right in. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the AI adoption paradigm, move into upgrading the banking model, explore AI as a moderator, discuss the algorithmic child, and finally wrap up with the family AI constitution.
First up, Section 1, the AI adoption paradigm. So, the first source we're diving into today is this incredibly rigorous academic review of how commercial banks in Kenya are adopting intelligent machines. We're looking at a research proposal that was completely overhauled to capture the reality of modern banking. And to really understand the sheer scale of this research, you just have to look at this number, 80 to 90%. That is the percentage of Kenya's entire banking assets controlled by what are known as Tier 1 banks. We're talking about the absolute giants of the financial sector, like KCB, Equity, and Cooperative Bank. The academic reviewer made a really smart move here and narrowed the scope of the study to focus exclusively on these heavyweights. Why? Because these Tier 1 banks aren't just sitting on piles of cash, they are the absolute pioneers in artificial intelligence investment. If you want to see how the AI adoption paradigm actually plays out in the real world, you've got to look at the players who have the capital to deploy it at scale. But that raises a huge question. How do you actually measure the success of that rollout?
That brings us to Section 2, upgrading the banking model.
Now, what I absolutely love about this is how the research proposal fundamentally shifts its entire theoretical foundation. The contrast is just night and day. The old paradigm? It was super broad and honestly kind of basic. It wanted to look at 38 random banks, measure their simple return on assets, and evaluate this vague concept of digital banking. But the revised study? It's a total game changer. It zeroes in on those Tier 1 banks we just talked about. It upgrades the dependent variable to look at true organizational performance. And crucially, it completely ditches the outdated term digital banking and replaces it with fintech and AI adoption. We aren't just talking about mobile apps anymore. We're talking about machine learning, robotic process automation, AI-enabled credit scoring, and predictive analytics. It is a massive leap from basic math to complex machine intelligence.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at how all these moving parts interact. The researchers recommend using a balanced scorecard framework, mostly because looking at financial metrics alone just doesn't cut it anymore. Notice how organizational performance now includes things like customer satisfaction and innovation capability. But the underlying theory here, dynamic capability theory, is what's truly captivating. This theory perfectly explains why some banks can roll out a shiny new AI tool, like a complex chatbot or a fraud detection system, and turn it into a massive competitive advantage, while other banks buy the exact same technology and, well, hear crickets. Zero improvement. Why? Because it's all about how the technology interacts with their existing diversification strategies. And that critical interaction is exactly what leads us to our next big concept.
Let's look at Section 3, AI as a moderator.
All right, so what exactly does a moderating variable do? In simple terms, it's a key factor that literally changes the strength or even the direction of an effect between your strategy and your performance. In the context of our Kenyan banks, AI isn't just an independent, isolated tool sitting on a server somewhere. AI adoption is the exact lens that dictates how a bank's diversification strategy actually impacts its final organizational performance. It's the critical filter through which all success must now pass.
Okay, don't panic. I know we're looking at a pretty intense, slightly terrifying piece of statistical architecture right now. OP equals beta 0 plus beta. Actually, scratch that. We're definitely not doing calculus today. But I do want you to zero in on that middle part. DIV times AI. Diversification multiplied by AI. That right there is the moderating effect in action. The researchers are mathematically proving that if you don't factor in AI, the formula for a bank's success is fundamentally broken. Now here is where this gets incredibly fun. If massive corporate entities need structured, rigorous formulas to survive the disruption of intelligent machines, shouldn't we?
I want you to genuinely ask yourself this question right now. How do we apply these structured AI frameworks to our own homes? We are constantly being handed new technologies, right? tablets, smart speakers, generative AI homework helpers. If we just toss them into our living rooms without any sort of framework, we are literally acting like a bank, buying an incredibly expensive piece of software with zero strategy for integration. We need to pivot from the macroeconomics of commercial banking straight into the microeconomics of the household.
Which leads perfectly into Section 4, the algorithmic child.
This brings us to our second incredible piece of source material, shifting our focus entirely to raising children in the age of intelligent machines. And this brilliantly captures our domestic moderator. It's the Algorithmic Child, A Parent's Guide by Abdelfatah Osman Hussein. This toolkit acts as the exact moderating variable between a child and the digital world. Think about it. Just as fintech moderates a bank's success, a structured parenting framework moderates a child's success when they're navigating AI. It takes this abstract, sometimes overwhelming threat of technological disruption and funnels it into a structured, manageable interface for the home.
Let's walk through how this toolkit actually functions. It breaks down into 3 super practical principles of co-parenting with AI. Step 1, start where you are. You don't need a PhD in computer science to do this. Just choose one single tool to focus on first. Step 2, your child is unique. Just like a bank has to adapt its assets, you have to adapt these digital tools to fit your own specific family values. And Step 3, progress, not perfection. If you slip up and screen time gets a little out of hand one weekend, just forget the slip and restart. It's an iterative, dynamic capability, just like those organizational frameworks we saw earlier. But, principles are only helpful if they translate into actionable policies.
So let's look at Section 5, the Family AI Constitution. Just like those Tier 1 banks rely on strict operational controls, like liquidity and capital adequacy requirements, a household needs a rock-solid code of conduct. Here are the 5 rules from the toolkit's Family AI Constitution. Rule 1, device curfews. Digital downtime is absolutely non-negotiable. Rule 2, public spaces only. Keep screens out in the open where the whole family can see them. Rule 3, the data diet. I absolutely love this one. You have to actively review app permissions. Managing your family's data diet is just as strategic and critical as a bank managing its financial assets. Rule 4, no bot zones. Places like the dinner table and homework time, sacred, tech-free. And finally, Rule 5, the consent conversation. You have to actively teach kids what it actually means to hand their personal data over to an algorithm. It is a brilliant, highly structured control system, but for the home.
So here is the bottom line. The fundamental truth of our era is identical, whether you're analyzing GDP and inflation in Nairobi or negotiating iPad time in your kitchen. AI is a massive, unstoppable disruption. But to turn that disruption into an advantage, you can't just passively let it happen to you. You need a structured framework. You need an active moderator. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on today. Whether it's in your business or your home, what is the moderating variable in your life? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.